I may have my issues with Genshin Impact, but that doesn't stop me from being a really diligent Genshin Impact player. So when Arlecchino was released, I played her story quest immediately. I even have footage of my playthrough because I anticipated making a video about her. Now, a lot of time has passed since then, but I still really want to talk about her second phase boss design and how much I think it sucks. Now, I will elaborate on why I feel that way, because I don't want this to seem like I'm bashing Genshin Impact designs for the sake of bashing them. While I may not like the result of Genshin Impact's character design philosophy, I still think they are capable of doing interesting things. Like with Arlecchino, I do genuinely like her base design. She still has her problems, but that's more reflective of Hoyoverse, the company that owns Genshin Impact, rather than her as a character. You know, the fact that there's no body diversity or the fact that the layers of her clothes make absolutely no sense. But otherwise, I do genuinely think Arlecchino is one of the few characters in Genshin Impact whose character design actually communicates something about the character. It's no secret that Hoyoverse, the company that owns Genshin Impact, has design ticks, especially when designing women. If you are a girl designed by Hoyoverse, your legs are always going to be exposed either via booty shorts, a skirt, or tights, or maybe a combination of one or the other. Either way, they're always going to accentuate this part of their female characters. As a result, Arlecchino stands out as the first female character to be wearing full-length pants. The reason being, Arlecchino's masculinity is actually an important part of her character. This is something explicit in the text. She is the leader of an orphanage that also doubles as an intelligence organization called the House of the Hearth. And to her subordinates, her children, she is called Father. Now, to call her masculine might seem very generous considering she still has high heels, long nails, makeup, and an hourglass figure. But in comparison to the other women in Genshin Impact, she definitely stands out. She's also a diplomat, so she is dressed in a finely tailored suit covered head to toe. For the most part, Genshin Impact characters are less character designs and more costume designs. This is tied back to the nature of Genshin as a gacha game, where the character's entire purpose is to entice you into spending money to gamble, so they have to be flashy and appealing, regardless of how much this compromises something about them as characters. And this feels like the first time where they actually tried to take a risk to say something about their character. Now, putting a woman in pants isn't really revolutionary, and I'm not going to act like it's more impressive than it is, but it is still something to be noted. They broke their own rule for designing Arlecchino, which is why I feel like her second phase boss design is almost regressive. When I look at Arlecchino's second phase boss design, it doesn't tell me anything new or interesting about her, it just contradicts what we have already established about her. When Arlecchino powers up, this isn't a change of who she is as a person, this is just an unveiling of hidden power that we didn't know she had. As such, I feel like the changes that come with her second phase don't make sense. Why is she exposing her chest to us? Arlecchino isn't making herself more vulnerable to us. She's actually furthering the distance between us by showing just how much more powerful she is. I don't see why Arlecchino would become more feminine. Now, this isn't to disparage femininity in character design, which is why I want to bring up La Signora, the other Fatui Harbinger boss, and how I think the accentuation of femininity in her design when she enters her second phase works perfectly for her character. When Signora enters her second phase, her chest gets even more exposed than it already was, and she goes in this big, billowing dress. And it makes perfect sense for her to accentuate those things. She is the fair lady. When Arlecchino's second phase was revealed, a lot of people were drawing comparisons to her and Signora and how they looked similar. And I think that's a disservice to both their characters because the Fatui Harbingers, although united underneath a single leader and the banner of Fatui Harbingers, they could not be more individual from one another, even to the point of antagonizing each other. The only uniform that they truly have is that of the mask, which conveniently Arlecchino doesn't seem to have. So I don't see why she would have these design similarities to Signora, especially since Arlecchino's power fantasy isn't that of the sexy, beautiful woman. It makes the femininity in Signora's design that works so well for her look less intentional and less character-driven as a result. Leaning more into my personal feelings of how Arlecchino looks, I think she looks completely imbalanced and fragile. With her chest exposed and all of her clothes being skin tight, it makes her look unprotected. But then she has these big stripper heels that completely weigh her down. I understand why she has them. It's to make her look larger. Every time a boss goes through their second phase transformation, they do something to make them look more physically imposing, trying to make them take more space. This is them powering up after all. They have to look scarier. But with Arlecchino, to me, it makes her look off balance and rooted in place. And while, yes, she has a sort of statuesque appearance to her, she's also really agile when you fight her. So I don't understand why they would make her look clumsy by making her so bottom heavy. I was so disappointed with her second phase boss design the moment we even got leaks of it, that I had basically already started sketching up redesigns for her before her quest even came out. But I did wait until I had additional context for the boss fight before actually making a proper redesign. And my goal is to address all the issues I pointed out. It's no secret that Arlecchino is inspired by Dark Souls characters, but I think they could have gone, a little bit further. Why stop at the scythe-wielding woman when you can go all the way with the horrible spider creatures that they have? I went to look up existing spiders to see if I could get like a visual reference to go off of when it comes to her spider aspect. Now, there are a lot of spiders out there. I didn't want to do the Black Widow because that is an overdone trope in my opinion. And also the trope of the Black Widow doesn't make sense for Arlecchino really, as they are often related to femme fatale, the sexy woman who draws you in and for the kill. That's not her. So I wanted to look for a different spider. I tried looking for spiders originating in France, but they all looked really boring. Either way, she isn't even really Fontainian, so it wouldn't have mattered. I ended up finding the spiny orb weaver because it could have the red, black, and white color palette, which Arlecchino has. Now, the spiny orb weaver as a visual inspiration isn't that evident, but the idea is there. I know that Genshin Impact is an anime game and that they would never compromise the sleek, beautiful appearance of their characters in favor of a horrible eldritch monster, but I feel like that there is a middle ground that could have been done, which is what I tried to do. By giving her massive tailcoats from which her spider legs could emerge from, acting as the body of the spider. In my mind, this would always be a present feature of her, rather than them just appearing sometimes for laser beams or whatnot. As for her clothing design, I went ahead and looked up inspiration from late 18th century French military regalia, because she is no longer a diplomat in this case. No need to wear the fancy suit where you can talk things out with her. We are well past the stage of talking things out. But I still wanted to have a level of finery to her, which is why I went for a military appearance. I also gave her armor. I don't particularly care for the excuse that is, oh, well, they're invincible or whatever, they don't need armor. Because armor doesn't have to just be about the physical protection. Armor is about presentation. If you look at historical full plate armor, there is evidence of them doing things purely for aesthetic purposes, purely for the sake of appearances, to appear more powerful. So why can't that be the role of armor for Arlecchino? And again, I don't see why she would want to have the appearance of being vulnerable. Even whether or not she may or may not be invulnerable to things doesn't matter. I don't see why she would have the appearance of exposing herself to us. I also gave her a mask. I do know how the cutscene plays out where you look into her eyes. I think that her mask should just be able to move. If anything, I want every part of her to have a level of ambiguity to it. Is it actually a part of her? Is it just clothes? Is it something else? Who's to say? something that I really like about Arlecchino is that she's supposed to be scary and creepy and unsettling. And I think it's a shame that they completely give up on that aspect when it comes time for her second phase boss design. Why not lean into it more? I know it's difficult for the sort of visual aesthetic that Genshin Impact has, but I did try my best when it came to my redesign. I actually did redraw her boss splash art, but much later than from when I did her initial redesign sketch. So there will be differences between the two. I kind of want to go on this tangent, which could arguably be its own video, but you know. I don't think it's a hot take to say that Genshin Impact is misogynistic. However, I feel like there's this really peculiar thing about the misogyny in Genshin Impact, and I guess Hoyoverse games in general, though I haven't played any others, so I won't speak on that too much. But it's the fact that Genshin as a game doesn't necessarily center men. Genshin isn't misogynistic really in the text. Now, there is like misogynistic media with majority female casts, like harem animes, for example. But the difference is that in Genshin Impact, the women's lives don't really revolve around a single man. And you might feel that way because, you know, when you play as the male traveler, then you're the main character and the story's all about you and you're a guy. And also they promote the male traveler and all of like the promotional media whenever they have to draw the traveler for whatever reason. But you still have the option to play as a girl. And ultimately, the male traveler's quest revolves around a woman, his sister. And even if the women in Genshin Impact will have like misogynistic tropes in their writing, their characters don't necessarily revolve around men. They don't do things for men. Regardless of how complex or simple they are, they have their own things going on that is about them. And they are capable of writing interesting and complex women. They are capable of doing interesting designs. It's just that there's like something that is stopping them. And yes, you can point your finger to what that is, be it the government or the fandom or executives in the company. But that's not really the point I'm trying to make. What I'm trying to say is that somewhere, at some point, during the creative process, there is someone that cares about what they're doing or the story that they are trying to tell. Even if there are like many layers of scrubbing down and trying to sand off anything that could rub people the wrong way in order to avoid losing customers and losing stocks, at the heart of it, there is still something there that matters to someone. And that's why I feel like there is still merit to playing a game like Genshin Impact or engaging with the characters and the story of Genshin Impact. Because there is something there that is interesting. Like whether or not you like it or care for it, that's up to you. But I think it's really annoying when someone just hand waves the bad things about Genshin Impact and excuses it as, oh, it's always going to be like this because they don't care or it doesn't matter to them. Because it's not true. Even if at the end of the day, this is a product to be sold, someone in there during the design process is trying to do something interesting and cares about the characters and stories they have made. And that is why I still play Genshin Impact, despite having a lot of issues with the game. Even though it sucks, there are still interesting things to engage with. You just have to like notice them and care about them too. Tangent over. I don't have a script. And I am kind of time crunching because I'm starting school next week. So, yeah. In the meantime, you can follow me on social media if you like my art. I also have commissions open, so if you want to commission me and want me to draw something for you for money, I can do that. I also very recently made a zine. I have the PDF of that on my Ko-fi. So if you are interested by Filipino diaspora guy overthinking being Filipino and diaspora, there it is. If you don't want to send me money, but you know you have money to spare, consider donating it to something important like Palestine or Congo or Sudan or literally any of the 1 million trillion horrible things that are happening in the world. Honestly, the next time you see me might be next year, I think. Bye.